Good afternoon and welcome to our Goizueta monthly admissions MBA chat. My name is Angela Bostic. I will be your moderator for today's MBA chat. I am joined on the chat by Libby Livingston, who represents our MBA admissions committee, and she'll be talking with us today about a host of things in the admissions area, but also answering your questions on a range of topics. These monthly chats are intended to be a dialogue and conversation as you begin your process of learning about Goizueta Business School, what it has to offer, and ideally preparing to apply. Libby, her colleagues are a wealth of knowledge to be able to help, and so she's here today to talk about that, but also to answer any questions you have. Before we get fully started, I'm going to do some housekeeping. If you've joined the chat with us before, welcome back. If you have not, it's a very open process. You can submit your questions through your back end at any point in time, and they will either be answered on camera by Libby, or we have folks off camera in the back who can respond to the questions directly, and so we'll make sure we get those answered. If we are bombarded with questions and just don't have enough time, we have all of your info, so we'll follow up with questions afterwards. In addition, the chat itself will be available for you about 7 to 10 business days after this. We'll get that sent back out to those of you who've signed up for it, so you can get more detail and kind of use it as an accompaniment as you're preparing, ideally, your application. The questions can be related to any of our MBA programs, and we'll make sure we try to get those answers to you. Libby is here representing our full-time MBA program, and specifically knows a wealth of knowledge about the MBA program on both the 1-year and 2-year side, but specifically the 2-year side. I will let her introduce herself briefly, and then we'll get started. Libby?
Sure. Thank you, Angela. Welcome. My name is Libby Livingston, and I'm Director of Admissions for the 2-year program, and I have been at Goizueta for over 14 years. So look forward to answering your questions today.
Fantastic. So we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, you can submit your questions at any point in time. And since we are sitting here almost at the end of September, we are in the thick of what we consider the heavy admissions recruiting cycle. So if you can talk a little bit about what does that work look like for you and your team now, and what are you guys focusing on?
Sure. Great. So we are actually traveling a lot currently, doing a lot of events, some organized fairs that different organizations do, but also we'll be having some upcoming receptions in New York as well as in DC. And so I encourage you to actually check our worldwide recruiting calendar to see if we're going to be in a city near you. We will also be doing a lot of on-campus events. So we have a lot of events with the full-time program, but also for the evening program as well as the executive program. And I know that we have information on that that we can share with you about the different events that are coming up.
What you'll see on the screen is the list of the events as Libby mentioned them, and they go for evening, executive, and full-time. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, and Libby mentioned some off-site visits and places. In addition to the fairs, can you talk a little bit about kind of what the purpose is of the events when you go to other cities, New York and DC? What should a prospective student expect from those events when they come to meet with you guys?
Sure. So if you're going to be coming to an actual fair, we do events through the Forte Foundation as well as the Consortium for Graduate Study and Management, and we're part of an organization called Inside the MBA. A lot of those events are just going to be starting in different cities, but we will be part of a group of MBA programs that will be there that you can actually interact with us one-on-one. Most of the schools there will have a current student or alum that will be attending with us that you can ask questions about their experience. And so really just a kind of networking, but also allows you to interact with other business schools too. For New York and DC, we'll actually be there doing receptions, Goizueta receptions. And that's a wonderful opportunity to really engage with our community, because we will have alumni and in some cases current students that will be at those events with us, and it's really networking. There's no formal program or presentation. It's really just the opportunity to interact with us and learn more about our program.
Fantastic. So I think, and I can't say enough about how great those events are. Admissions travels tirelessly during this time of year to make sure that they're getting a chance to engage with you all around the country and around the world. I know a lot more of the international travel has started to slow down and wrap up, so there's a lot more of it happening domestically, and that's where we kind of loop in some of these these chats so that individuals from anywhere can watch them. I had a question come in I wanted to make sure you got a chance to tackle, and I'm going to broaden it up a little bit. Specifically, you guys are hosting a lot of events. There are events for women, there are events for diversity. Goizueta is a consortium school, and as I know you oversee the kind of population of diverse candidates for our full-time program. Can you talk a little bit about consortium program at Goizueta and how you all separately or evaluate those candidates?
Sure. Yes, so we have been a member of the Consortium for Graduate Study and Management for over 13 years, and students that decide to apply through the consortium, it actually is just to our 2-year or our 1-year program. What is nice is that you can actually apply to both of those programs through the consortium, and through the consortium you actually can apply to up to 6 schools, and Emory can count as one of those schools, and within the Emory application you can apply to our 2-year as well as our 1-year. If you're trying to decide between the 2 programs, you've got that option. So once you apply through the consortium, your application will be sent to us from the consortium, and we put those applications in with just all the other applications that we receive within that round. There are 2 application deadlines within the consortium. There's an October deadline as well as a January deadline, and the October deadline falls within our round 1, and the January deadline falls within our round 3. We actually, for the full-time program, have a total of 4 rounds. So whether you fall in our round 1 or our round 3 through the consortium, you are fully considered for admission as well as for the fellowship opportunities. So students apply to us. We review the application just like any other application that we have received through our regular application. Then students will be reviewed for membership in the consortium if you meet the mission of the consortium, and that is actually done by the consortium organization itself. And then at that point, students, if you are admitted to the school as well as you've made membership, then you are considered for the fellowship opportunities, and that takes place in March each year. So.
Fantastic. And I put up on the screen while Olivia was talking the full-time MBA deadlines, just so you note kind of when those 2 dates fall into it. So you can see here our round 1 through 4 and when those would correspond with the consortium applications. And specifically, if you're interested in learning more about kind of diversity at Goizueta, one of the dates that was there, and I'll place it back up on the screen for you, is our Inside Goizueta Diversity event, which is the 6th to the 8th of November. It is a very competitive program, and so we take applications for that. So you can find those applications on our website, and those applications, I think the application is open now. So you can find that on the website and apply, and you'll find out fairly quickly whether you're able to attend the event, 2-day event, and really a great opportunity for you to learn more about the school. Another opportunity like that, and we've had a question about this as well, is what kind of programming there are for women candidates in the program. So can you talk a little bit about the Women at Goizueta event that I see here, and then other programming for women at Goizueta?
Definitely. So we have a lot of opportunities to interact with us women on campus, and our largest event, which is actually this will be our 2nd year hosting this event, is our Women at Goizueta event. It's actually in mid-November, and similar to our diversity conference, it is by application, not admissions application, but an application to attend the event. So just short application, you upload your resume, and then we can consider you for being invited for that event. It's actually a 2-day event as well, starting on a Thursday, and then students that are invited will attend our Executive Women of Goizueta conference. They do an annual conference each year, and so the women will attend that conference. It's amazing. You can definitely look online to see the schedule's already out for the agenda for the day, but some amazing speakers. And then we have a dinner in the evening after the conference, and then a breakfast on Saturday morning. So it's really kind of a 2-day conference to really experience our community, but also attend a wonderful opportunity through this conference. We also offer a women's speaker series, and on October 24th, we're going to be hosting an alum that's going to be speaking to prospective students as well as current students as well as alums, and so that'll be taking place that morning, and so that's a wonderful opportunity to come to campus and be able to interact as well as hear from one of our recent alums. So that's an option. We also, with our Super Saturday that's coming up in mid-October, October 11th, we have special programming for women on that day. So we have a dinner the night before at a restaurant in Atlanta that students can attend, as well as a panel at the end of the day on Saturday from our Goizueta Women in Business organization, which is very active and engaged on campus. And those women are interested in sharing their story about why they decided to come to Goizueta and their experience in their first year or their 2nd year or in our 1-year program. So.
Fantastic. So I definitely think that there's a lot of opportunities. There was a question that came in that I'd love to get you to kind of weigh in on about whether or not you have to attend an event or come to campus to be considered for the program. So if you can talk a little bit about what the application or admissions requirements are related to engaging with the school.
Sure. So we realize that not everyone can come to campus, during the admissions process, and that is completely fine. And that is why we, travel to so many different cities to be able to engage with students at these MBA fairs or at our receptions. And it may be, students decide that they want to visit schools after they've received their admission decisions, and a lot of schools host what we call welcome weekend, but admitted student weekends. So you may decide to delay your visit until later in the process, which is fine too. But we look forward to engaging with you. Please do that on campus or off campus. If you can't make it to an event, and if you're in a city that we don't visit, definitely you have the opportunity to engage with our students online. We have Connect with an Ambassador on our main kind of admissions page within the full-time area, and there's a number of profiles there that you can review and email directly. So definitely engage with us. We're happy to assist you with questions throughout the process. When it comes to the application process, a lot of people want to know about the interviewing, and for specifically the full-time program, we have open interviewing on campus. So if you do get the opportunity to come, definitely schedule your interview. We have open interviewing until mid-November, November 14th, and you need to do that interview by the deadline that you plan to apply. So if you're going to apply in round 1, October 10th, then you'd want to have your interview done by that date, or we will actually do your interview on that Saturday, October 11th, which is fine. But then, you need to do the interview by the deadline date, or if you're not able to, once we receive your application, we'll do an initial review, and then you'll be invited to campus to interview. There are a few cities that we'll be traveling to that you could have the opportunity to interview in your city, but most of those interviews will take place on campus. So if you have to apply before you can interview, then you will wait to hear from us about an invitation, and those are on campus primarily.
Fantastic. So we had a question come in since you're talking about the application process. I know all of you are gathering this information, hopefully to get started, if you haven't started already, on your applications that are upcoming. Talk about two things. One, the ambassador program. You mentioned it briefly, but how would a prospective student utilize the ambassador program? How would it be helpful during the application process? And then if they get in, what should they expect from it after that?
Sure. So we have a very active ambassador program, and these individuals are first years as well as second years that want to host you when you come to campus and through our different events, or if you want to come for an individual visit. You can actually schedule online a class that you're interested in attending, and a student will host you as well as take you to lunch and give you a tour of the business school too. The ambassadors host you during our, we have Insight Days. We actually have one this upcoming Monday where we'll be hosting students for class visits and an information session all in one day, but also on our October 11th Super Saturday, as well as our Diversity and Women's event. So ambassadors are a great resource to be able to connect, to chat with, and as I mentioned, you can actually connect with a good number just by going online and looking at their profiles, and being able to connect with someone that maybe has the same interests that you have, that you can kind of learn about their internship experience, or how they've enjoyed their first semester so far. So that is something that you can do online. Once students actually get here, we ask students to be ambassadors, and you can participate, as I mentioned, during your first year as well as in your second year. So they can be a great resource to students, and it's very easy to connect with them.
And I definitely think that you should take advantage of it. One of the portions of the school that is central to who we are, but hard to experience unless you get a chance to physically be here, is the community. And our ambassadors are extensions of that great community and do a phenomenal job of just explaining and also helping people think through the process. What do I need to say? How should I organize my application? What classes should I look towards? And it's a more candid view of sort of how the process works. And so there's a lot of details that are important there. When you think about the ability for a student to interact with with current students in the program, and you think about what that means in relation to the curriculum, can you talk a bit about how the Goizueta curriculum and kind of its unique curriculum is developed, and then also how you would, no, I shouldn't say developed, or how it's kind of laid out structurally, and how current students sort of see the benefit of that in their time while they're in the program.
Definitely. So we have a front-loaded curriculum, and you see that, actually in our part-time program as well, where students are able to take all of their core up front, and in the full-time program, the 2-year or the 1-year, you do all of your core in the first semester, whether you're doing that in the summer semester in the 1-year program or in the fall of the 2-year program. And I think there's a huge benefit in that in the 2-year program, in your second semester, you're starting to take electives, and that is really helpful in preparing you for your internship interviews as well as just your internship in general. So being able to front load the curriculum, it is a very intense semester. In the 1-year, you're doing it within 10 weeks, and in the 2-year program, you're doing it within 15 weeks. So definitely intense. In the 1-year, it's within 2 blocks, and in the 2-year program, it's 3 blocks. So students are, taking a lot of courses and getting through a lot of work. We also have some unique programs that are called management practice, where it's a core course that you do in your first semester that really allows you to practice your management skills early in the process. We have a very experiential curriculum where within your classes you're going to be able to, interact with companies. You're going to have teams developed for you in that first semester, and you're going to be working in teams within every one of your classes. So very interactive, very collaborative, and very experiential. And then in addition to kind of the MP core class that you take, something that's unique is that students in the 2-year program, in their second semester, they actually take what we call an MP approved elective, which allows students to take a very experiential course, and they vary, depending on your area of interest, but within each of our kind of main areas, marketing, finance, organization and management, operations, there is a course that is offered, and so students are able to almost get, a mini kind of internship in a way. It's obviously not an internship, but it's very experiential, allows students to be able to work with companies and do project work that allows them to be able to interact with the business community very early in the process.
And the great thing about that, and there was a question that came in specifically to businesses and working with businesses in Atlanta. The MP program takes some of the great things about being in a global city like Atlanta and brings it to life for students. And so it's not just about the companies that are here, but the access to be able to work with those companies. But if you had to talk to a prospective student from not Atlanta about sort of some of the great things about being able to operate in a dynamic city like this, what are some of the things that you find current students and prospective students really like about being able to study in a place like Atlanta?
Sure. Well, Atlanta's a great city. It's, number 3 in Fortune 500 headquarters here in Atlanta. 750 of the corporations have major operations here out of the 1,000 companies. So it's, we tap into that, definitely. And it's an amazing experience for the students being able to be in such a, be a part of a city that it's a very livable city, it's a very affordable city, but also has such great access to an awesome business environment and community. And so we're able to early on, interact with the community. And, with the students in their core classes, oftentimes they can do project work that they'll be interacting with the community. So even in that first semester, you're going to have opportunities. And through our Career Center, you're going to be starting to, learn about the different companies that recruit here. The internship process really starts, kind of formal interviewing starts in the spring semester, but for full-time recruiting, that takes place in the fall semester, and lots of companies are coming to campus. It's very easy for the companies to visit us and to recruit our students. And so you're getting interaction through the classes, but also through even co-curricular organizations based on your areas of interest in the clubs, as well as through the Career Center. And I think that that's one thing that's really nice about our program and our curriculum is that it's very integrated. All of those areas, the academic side, but also the co-curricular in your clubs, but also the career piece. And so we, when it comes to Atlanta, it's a wonderful city, and it's a very diverse city, and it offers a lot if you're into the arts or you're into sports. The weather, you get all 4 seasons, you're not far from the beach, you're not far from the mountains. you could go to the airport and pretty much go to any city on a direct flight. So it's definitely an advantage to be in the city of Atlanta.
Exactly. So I'm going to take all the questions that have come in about the application, because there have been a fair amount. I'm going to try to bucket these as best as possible. And we'll start with one that kind of relates to something we've talked about before, but in terms of interviewing. So for international candidates, do international candidates have to have an interview on campus before they can have an offer made to them, meaning acceptance, or Skype and other methods that you are able to interview them to be able to handle that?
So for international candidates specifically, obviously, you're welcome to come to campus, do an open interview up until mid-November. That may not be possible, we understand. So candidates will be invited after we do an initial review, and candidates will be offered, if they're not located in the United States, they will be offered the option to do a Skype interview. If Skype's not an option, we can obviously do a phone interview, but it is really helpful if we could do a Skype to at least see you and be able to interact with you in that way. Obviously, if you're invited for an interview and you're able to come to campus, that is great. That is, you're more than welcome to come to campus to do those interviews as well.
And then in terms of the other application process, there's a portion of figuring out when does all the information have to be together. So when is your application considered complete, right?
Sure.
And are there ways for you to add to it new GMAT scores or a new recommendation or an update to your work experience while you are still in process?
Sure. So we need all the components of your application to be complete by the deadline. So if you're going to be applying on Friday, October 10th, you need to have all of your application materials in by that date. That means all of your transcripts have been received. We do accept unofficial copies of your transcript at this stage in the process. You need to have your 2 required recommendations in. You need to have everything, essays, all of that in by that date. Obviously, the interview is, you do not have to have that in. That is not a required piece. So let's just say that you take the GMAT, you complete your application and you're part of round 1. If later you do have an update to your file, you obviously would want to send that information to us, and we will add that to your application. But we need to have everything in by the particular deadline that you are applying in the round, and we take a few days to gather all of your materials, and then we will list if there was anything missing, and then you have, just a short window to be able to get that to us, typically about a week after the deadline date. And at that point, if not everything is in, then you will move to round 2 or the next round.
Correct. So I have on the screen again the full-time MBA deadlines. As I know that Libby, is talking specifically about full-time deadlines. Our evening and executive deadlines, I'm flipping through those quickly while we're on the screen as well, because I know there's interest in multiple programs, are also on the screen. As you'll notice that there are deadlines, and as she's mentioning, if you don't make one in full, you kind of move down to the next one. In terms of that, though, where does consideration for scholarship fall? So is there a round where a student is no longer eligible for scholarships?
Good question. So all students that apply by our round 3, which is our January deadline, if you meet that deadline, you will automatically be considered. So there's no additional application that's needed. If you apply in round 1, 2, or 3, you'll be automatically considered. Candidates will be reviewed for scholarship at the same time that they're considered for admission. So when we release decisions at the end of each round, then you will also receive your scholarship decision. So if you get your admission decision and there's no mention of scholarship, then you have not received a scholarship. Those decisions come at the same time. Now, we do have our round 4, but that deadline is past our scholarship deadline, and candidates that apply by that date, there are no funds available at that point to be considered.
Okay, fantastic. So that's helpful to kind of, as you're thinking through your process, another reason to sort of front load how you're thinking about when you're applying. Are there resources that the school has that you would provide in terms of people who are applying? Can they reach out to individuals about GMAT help, or where you would suggest that they get advice on writing essays? Are the chats the best way to go? Are there places you would suggest students to go to help them prepare an ideal application?
Sure. So, well, On October 11th with our Super Saturday, we will be doing that by webcast. And so part of that day is an information session. And it's a wonderful opportunity to connect with us again. And during that kind of hour and a half, we actually have an overview of our program by our Associate Dean in the full-time program office, as well as our Associate Dean in our Career Management Center, kind of reviewing details on the program and our career opportunities, as well as we have a faculty member that does kind of a case simulation for about 30 minutes. And so that's nice. If you can't actually come to campus and sit in on a class, you can actually experience that that day through our webcast. And then we also have an overview of kind of each area of the admissions process. And we touch briefly on kind of the things that we expect through your transcripts and through your essays. So I definitely encourage you to tune in that day because you can get some detailed information. But also there's a lot of great resources online. I know that we serve on panels at a lot of the events that we go to, and so you can definitely do some research and find some things online, because a lot of those areas schools talk about can be applied to other schools as well.
Absolutely.
So, great information.
And just to clarify, I think you mentioned decisions are received by the decision notification date or on the decision notification date?
Typically on the date. It could come a day early.
Okay.
But typically definitely by that date, but not a week earlier or anything.
Okay,
so maybe
fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of that, when a person is applying, are there elements or parts of the application that you would suggest that they spend more time or maximum time? I mean, they definitely want to prepare a good application, but in the interest of timing, if there was, is there more part, or is there a part that is more important than others?
Sure. So, every piece of the application is really important. Obviously, preparing for your test, we accept the GMAT or the GRE. Either is accepted. We don't prefer one over the other. So preparing for the test, we do see students that take the test multiple times, which is fine. I think that you owe it to yourself, if you think that you're capable of a better score, to definitely take the test again. We like to see students within our 80% range. So you can see that information online. And if you've taken the GRE, there's a GRE GMAT comparison tool that you can put your score in to kind of see what it would be as if it was a GMAT, to see if you fall within our range. So definitely encourage you to fall within our GMAT range. If you don't, suggest to take it again. We do like to see, the quantitative area within the test, that whether it's the GMAT or the GRE, that you're above the 50th percentile on the test. So if you're at that minimum or below, definitely consider retaking the test. We're going to take your highest score. If you take the GMAT and you take the GRE, please submit all test scores to us, because we don't want to find out later when you submit only one score, and then maybe that results in you getting a waitlist decision, and then we find out later you actually had a GRE score we didn't even know about. So please submit all of your scores to us. So obviously we want to make sure that you're academically prepared. So we look at that, with your test scores as well as your GPA and your transcripts. But definitely spend time on your essays. I think some people think, do they really read all these essays? And we really do. This is a very important part of the application process. We encourage you to stay within your the word limits that we provide, and definitely proof your essays. You could actually have someone review your essays. Maybe don't provide the question to them, see if they can tell you what the question is, just to make sure that you've been able to articulate your thoughts to us in a succinct way, and then spend time thinking about who should write your recommendations. I think that you definitely want to spend some time chatting with them if you can't meet with them in person, but chat with them over the phone about why you're deciding to pursue the MBA, what your interests are, what do your goals, and why you're specifically interested in Goizueta Business School at Emory, and because I think that information will help them to write a better recommendation. And so all parts are important. I mean, every piece. We do not have a weighted application. And in going through the admissions process, the application process is a very self-reflective process. And I think students, in the end, it's been a lot of work, but it's really allowed them to think about where they've been, why they want this degree, their career goals, and why now's a good time. And I think going through all of that is very helpful before you do the interview as well. If you're thinking about doing an interview during our open interview period, definitely look at our essays, think about, your answers to those questions, because you want to be sure that what you say in your essays is going to be, similar to what you share in your interview too. So all parts are important. Spend time on it. We can really tell when someone's rushed through an application and someone that's really taken the time to do it right. And you want to be yourself and be genuine and be authentic throughout the process. So.
Fantastic. So we've had a couple questions that have come in about the one-year program, specific to the application. But before we get into one-year applications and deadlines and scholarship, I just wanted you to take a little bit of time to discuss the differences between the two programs, specific to the condensed one-year schedule and how that affects career engagement and how that affects the kind of curriculum schedule, and what are the differences between how one-year students engage with career and two-year, and are there differences?
Sure. Good. So, the two-year program is your traditional two-year program. We actually start in late July, so earlier than a lot of programs. We actually have a 2-week required orientation before you even start classes. And then, as I mentioned, you do all the core in the first semester, and then you start taking your electives. You have 14 electives that you take within the two-year program. Between your first year and your second year, students do an internship. Second year, you do your electives, and then you graduate. So a lot of students that come into that program, maybe making a career switch. They've been, maybe in accounting, but through that experience, they've decided that they're really interested more in marketing, and they really want to make a big switch. And to be able to do that, they have discovered through their research that doing an MBA will really allow them to be able to do that more easily. So that's just one example. Obviously, there's lots of, backgrounds that students, move into and want to make a career switch. With the one-year program, that program starts in early May, and it has a 2-week required orientation before classes start. And they have a 10-week semester where they do all the core. And then they actually, at the end of that semester, they join the rising second-year students in the two-year program for the fall and the spring doing electives, and then they graduate. So as soon as the summer ends, they start the recruitment process for a full-time offer. But during the summer, they've worked closely with the Career Center and preparing them for the job search process. And basically, when thinking about the one-year program, you need to think about, we look for candidates that will not need an internship to do what it is that they want to do. So students, that's the main thing that you need to think about, is, do I need the internship to be able to meet my goals? So that's the big question. And then, with, students that go into the one-year program have great success being able to do consulting, corporate finance, entrepreneurs. If you're in a, company where you want to go back out immediately, you're working in a company, and then you want to come in for a year and you want to go back to that company. A lot of sponsored students that just want to take 1 year out. That's a great option as well. So you're interacting with the Career Center, just similar to kind of how the two-year program is interacting with the Career Center, but you're focused on, obviously you don't have the internship. You're just focused on the full-time employment, where the two-year students are working through the internship process as well as the full-time employment process.
Fantastic. And then just one more thing related to that, to the one-year program and the two-year program. Are there differences on timetables for when one-year students need to apply for scholarship consideration? Is it also by round 3, or is it sooner?
It's by round 3. So, and that is actually, we encourage one-year candidates to try to apply by round 2.
Yeah.
Obviously, we consider you in our round 3 and even round 4, but since the program starts in early May, the sooner you can apply, the better. So the final scholarship deadline is still round 3.
Fantastic. And then there was a question about kind of additional career support for the MBA program. And I wanted to talk a little bit about our treks and sort of where our students go on their treks, and kind of where we have seen, sort of the growth of that to recent dates.
Sure. So the treks actually take place in the two-year program, and it's typically in block 2, at the end of the block 2. There's 3 blocks that you do within your first semester. So that's kind of at the end of October, beginning of November. And, we really listen to the students and where it is that they're interested in, the companies that they're interested in, to decide where we go each year for these treks. So they do vary, but for example, we typically have gone to New York for finance finance as well as for marketing. I know we've gone to Boston for finance, we've gone to San Francisco for technology. We've actually even taken some international trips that actually take more in the winter break, where we've had kind of a focus area on treks internationally too. So it's an awesome opportunity for students to be able to go to this particular city. The Career Center has one of their career coaches that actually kind of leads the week and is able to set up a schedule to be able to visit companies, meet with our alums and recruiters, and to really kind of get an inside look at that particular company or organization, and being able for you to make connections. Because really, as I mentioned, there's a lot of networking that goes on during that first semester, but the official kind of interviewing for internships takes place more in the spring semester in January. So this is kind of leading up to that, to be able to allow the students to network. So those are wonderful opportunities for the students to participate in. And also kind of on the career side, I could also share that students, before they've even enrolled, whether it's our one-year program or if it's our two-year program, they're actually connected. If it's a one-year, it's one of our recent one-year alums. And in the two-year, it's actually a second-year student that we call peer career coaches. And so before you actually even step foot on campus, you're connected with a peer career coach that's going to be able to assist you kind of through, for the two-year, the internship process, and for the one-year, kind of getting you ready to start the full-time employment process. So they can really, they've done what it is that you want to do, and they're a great resource, can kind of give you tips and ideas of things that you need to be thinking about and doing some informational interviews. And so I think students find that very valuable. They can also give you kind of suggestions on your resume, because as soon as you get here, you've got to, before you get here, you actually get your resume kind of in one-page business school resume format. So I think students have really benefited from being able to have that experience with those career coaches, peer career coaches.
Fantastic. So there's been a question coming in, and I'm mindful that we're running close to the end. So if you have any more questions, please make sure you submit them so we can get them answered either on air or behind camera. Talk a little bit about the specific industry opportunities and kind of distinct areas in which Emory has for people to study. So whether it be our centers and sustainability or marketing analytics, or just some of our areas of emerging space like healthcare. And what are some of those that you would say are strengths of Emory that a prospective student should consider?
Sure. So, well, if you look at our different kind of concentrations, you can see that we have accounting and organization and management, kind of operations area, marketing, and finance. And so those are kind of our largest areas, and within that there's kind of 20 different concentrations that students can focus in on. And what's nice is it's very flexible. So if you are interested in a particular area, maybe we don't offer that particular concentration or particular course, you can actually do a directed study and create your own course. You can actually get credit for one of those. You can do more, but you get credit for one directed study during your time here. What's also nice is that you can take a couple of classes outside the business school. So if there was something, language courses at the college level, or something within the School of Public Health related to healthcare, or something within our law school, you have the opportunity to do that. And even if there was a course at another school within the Atlanta area, within their business school that you were interested in taking, that's an option too. Angela mentioned our centers. We actually have 3 centers. We have our Center for Marketing Analytics, our Center for Alternative Investments, as well as our social enterprise. And so students have the opportunity to engage with those centers during their time here. And want to mention that there is an opportunity during the admissions process to actually apply to be a fellow within one of those centers. So during the admissions process, you, at the time, whichever round deadline that you plan to apply for, you would actually apply to be considered for this fellowship, center fellowship. And you can find out more information about this under Funding Your MBA on the, full-time area website, and so it will have center fellowships there. So I encourage you to check that out if you're interested in one of those areas. But it's an opportunity to be able to, almost in a way, kind of have an assistantship. They're structured a little bit differently within the centers, but allows you to assist them with research, and a lot of them host conferences. The Social Enterprise Center has lots of great, projects that they're working on. We also have a nonprofit consulting board that students can participate in to work with local nonprofits, which is something that students really enjoy doing if you're interested in that space. And so definitely check it out. And I know Angela mentioned healthcare. That's definitely an area where a lot of our students are interested, and we do have a healthcare concentration. And you're able to take courses, as I mentioned, at the School of Public Health. But being so connected here with Emory Healthcare, as well as the CDC, School of Public Health, School of Medicine, there's some great opportunities to be able to be involved in that. We have a very active healthcare club. And among all these different areas that I've mentioned, I've touched on a lot just now, there are clubs and organizations that are engaging within these areas that you want to participate as a student, because a lot of networking takes place there, panels that the organizations will sponsor. So, and you can do more than one concentration too. We have over 90 different electives that you can choose from. This is the time that you're able to take the courses that really interest you in addition to maybe your area of focus. And so we, our program is really a general management program, but definitely allows you to focus and tailor in a particular area. But there could be courses that just really sound interesting to you. And a lot of our students are interested, in taking some of our entrepreneurship classes that, they may want to use later on in, kind of longer term. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, I think it's very helpful to kind of understand that there's a lot of opportunity. I love when people say, what kind of things can I specialize in? In truth, the emerging topics and emerging areas in business are being taught at the business school. So there are a lot of ways for you to get involved and engaged. Some of you have asked about human capital and asked about strategy and asked about operations and asked about web analytics. There's a whole host of topics that all are addressed in different manners and ways. And to Libby's point, if you don't find the exact name in the exact way that you want it, there are ways to make directed studies with the many companies that exist here in Atlanta, or the many faculty who are doing research in similar topics. So I'm going to make sure we wrap up. I'm mindful of your time and of Libby's time. So hopefully we've had a chance to answer some of your key questions here today. If not, you will be able to submit your questions for our next chat in October, which will be always on the 4th Thursday. So I think that's the 28th, I think it is. And if not, I would, up on the screen you see our next upcoming events. I would highly encourage you to try to attend an event in person, or either on campus or in a city near you. We've got upcoming dates in New York and DC, both fantastic places that the admissions team visits often. We have upcoming events in Florida. We have upcoming events on the West Coast. So there are a lot of dates, so you can take a look at the website and see where we will be if we are going to be in a city near you soon. But also an easy opportunity to come to campus on our Super Saturday, which is October 11th, or for one of our class insight days as they are upcoming. So it looks like the next class insight day is Monday, right? Because this upcoming Monday. So for those of you locally or those of you traveling down, we would love to host you. I know Libby and her team would love to have you present. So we thank you for joining us, for taking time out of your day. Hopefully this was helpful for you, and we look forward to reading your application and seeing you soon. Have a great day.